Hey everyone, I'm Matt Dolan with Dolan Divorce Lawyers in Connecticut, and today what I'm going to talk about is how the court handles the situation of one parent wanting to relocate with a child or children to another location, whether that's another state, another country, or maybe far away within the state of Connecticut. There are specific statutes that deal with this scenario. So there's two different ways that the court handles it. One is the scenario where there have never been any court orders in place and one of the parents wants to relocate to another state, while the initial divorce or custody proceedings are going on. That is handled one way. And then there's the situation of there are already court orders in place, whether it was after a divorce or just a custody case if the parties were never married and one of the parents wants to relocate. That is handled a separate way. So I'll share my screen to go over the statutes that cover those two scenarios. So the first scenario, where there have never been any court orders in place and the parties are just figuring out where the child or children are going to live, in that scenario, there is no specific relocation statute that dictates custody. It really comes down to, what living situation is in the best interest of the child or children. I've done a separate video that talks about custody and visitation orders. So I would direct your attention to that video. You can find it, and it's really, the standard for, the standard that the court will be considering in determining whether or not the children should stay here in Connecticut or go to another state or move, far across the state. The standard is what is in the best interest of the child, which is, the factors that the court considers are listed in Connecticut General Statute Section 46B-56. So again, just watch that video and that will give you some insight into how relocation is handled then. Now, if it is a post-judgment, after there have been orders in place and one party wants to relocate with the children, there's a specific statute that deals with this. So the party who wants to relocate, they would file a motion to modify custody, indicating to the court that they want to relocate with the child or children to another state. And what the court would look at is Connecticut General Statute Section 46B-56D, which is relocation of parent with minor child, burden of proof, factors considered by the court. So what it says is that in any proceeding before the Superior Court arising after the entry of judgment awarding custody of a minor child and involving the relocation of either parent with the child. So again, this says after the entry of judgment. So this is after there are already set orders in place. Somebody is looking to modify those orders. Where such relocation would have a significant impact on an existing parenting plan, the relocating parent shall bear the burden of providing the following. So this specifically says where such relocation would have a significant impact on an existing parenting plan. So if a party is, wanting to move across town or move, one town over, the relocation statute does not apply because it will not have a significant impact on an existing parenting plan. It just means somebody has to drive an extra 5 minutes. Now, it can get a little gray. It can become a gray area if somebody's moving maybe half an hour away, because that can maybe have a, significant impact on the existing parenting plan. There's no bright line rule of like how many miles or anything like that. It's a gray area that is up to interpretation by the court. So if you are fighting a relocation, for example, you may have to establish, you first need to establish that, yes, this relocation would have a significant impact on a parenting plan. So if it is having a significant impact, the relocating parent shall bear the burden of proving by a preponderance of the evidence that so on. And I'll go over the factors. But this is basically saying that the person who is wanting to relocate, they have the burden of proving certain things to the court by a preponderance of the evidence. So preponderance of the evidence is a legal term that basically means more likely than not. So they have to prove that the following things, that there is a more than 50% chance that the following things are true. So they have to establish, one, that the relocation is for a legitimate purpose. So there's a legitimate reason why they are relocating. Court's not going to find it legitimate if it's, I don't know, the weather's a little bit better, or, I don't know. It's hard to think of non-legitimate reasons, but you like the color of the paint on the house that you're moving to. That is not a legitimate reason. Legitimate purposes might include, okay, I got into, I want to go back to school and I got into a very good school in another state. Or I'm remarried and my current spouse who supports me and my family, he took a job in another state. Or, I'm struggling financially here at home and I have this job opportunity in this other state. Or, my parents live in this other state and we can go live with them and they're going to help us out financially, something like that. So there has to be a legitimate purpose for the relocation. And then two, the proposed location is reasonable in light of such purpose. So, again, if you say you're gonna, you want to move to Arizona because you are getting support from your family, but then your family lives in California, the location is not reasonable in light of that purpose. So, 1 and 2 really go together. And then 3, you have to establish that the relocation is in the best interest of the child. So that goes back to the factors that are enumerated in 46B-56. So the person who is seeking the relocation bears the burden of establishing that these 3 things are more likely than not to be true. Statute goes on to say in subsection B, in determining whether to approve the relocation of the child under subsection A of this section, the court shall consider, but such consideration shall not be limited to the following factors. So the court must consider these factors, but they don't, they can consider other factors beyond the factors that I'm about to talk about. So 1, each parent's reasons for seeking or opposing the relocation. So the court's going to weigh, consider why mom wants to relocate to Arizona, and also consider why dad doesn't want mom to relocate to Arizona, or even Massachusetts, one state over. So the court's going to, assess each party's, opinions on why they do or do not want the relocation, and consider, kind of the reasonableness of each person's position. 2, the quality of the relationship between the child and each parent. So that is a factor, if mom is wanting to relocate to another state and dad has no relationship with the kids, that obviously, will weigh different in the minds of the court if, as compared to the scenario where dad is very close to the kids. So, the court will consider the existing strength of that relationship in determining whether it's best for the children to relocate to this other location. 3, the impact of the relocation on the quantity and the quality of the child's future contact with the non-relocating parent. So, they're going to consider, all right, is this child moving to Arizona? And what are the financial resources of these folks? What's their ability to maintain that contact? Or if they're moving to China, or if they're moving to Massachusetts, those are obviously 3 very different scenarios in, where it probably will be less likely that a relocation to China would be granted than a relocation to Massachusetts, because the impact of the relocation on the quantity and the quality of the child's future contact with the non-relocating parent will be reduced if, the further away the relocation is. 4, the degree to which the relocating parents and the child's life may be enhanced economically, emotionally, and educationally by the relocation. So that sort of goes back to the relocation is for a legitimate purpose and is reasonable in light of that purpose. The court's going to look at why this relocation is happening and whether it's really going to enhance this child's life. Is there family that is, in this other relocation, location? Are there better financial opportunities that are going to allow the child to live, less in poverty, for example, or just have more financial resources or better educational opportunities, etc. So that is something the court considers. And 5, the feasibility of preserving the relationship between the non-relocating parent and the child through suitable visitation arrangements. So that sort of goes back to number 4, which is the degree to which the relocating parent and child's life may be, or sorry, number 3, the impact of the relocation on the quantity and quality of the child's future contact with the non-relocating parent. So, the court's gonna look at, okay, is this child moving to Massachusetts? If so, do they have the financial resources or the work schedule ability to maintain the relationship between the child and the parent? So those are the factors. Not all the factors. The court can consider everything, and there are other, there are all the different best interest of the child factors that I talk about in the other video that I made. So really, it just, in a lot of it is sort of just common sense. If somebody is wanting to relocate, to another state with a child, the court's going to weigh all these factors, but ultimately what is most important in the eyes of the court is what situation is in the best interest of the child, whether or not it is best for the child to move to this other location with the parent. Now, the court doesn't have the authority to tell a parent that they cannot move to another location. Everybody's free to live where they want. But what the court can say is, okay, you can move, but you can't take the children with you or the child with you. They will stay with the non-relocating parent. So those are the basics on how the court handles relocation here in Connecticut. As usual, if you have any questions, you can comment on this video or reach out to our office. And if you are looking for representation in a divorce or family law case, we would invite you to contact our office as well.